So Bigtreetech released their answer to the Creality Sonic Pad recently, and many of you were asking when I would be getting one to do a review on it. I asked BQ to send me one, but wasn't aware that I would actually be receiving anything until I came home the other day and found this at my door. This is the Bigtreetech Pad7. It's actually a CB1 integrated into a capacitive touchscreen, which is cool because if you've watched my other video on the CB1 and Pi 4B adapter, I'm quite fond of the CB1. This unit has a 7-inch touchscreen, much like the Creality Sonic Pad and the FL Sun Speeder Pad, and is currently available at a price point of only $129, which I think is pretty good for this type of unit. So when we first open the box, we find a pamphlet with the breakdown of all the parts and accessories that are included, along with a QR code to their GitHub page for setup instructions. If we look at the list of accessories, we'll see that the unit includes everything necessary to get started, including a universal wall adapter, a 32GB SD card with Clipper pre-installed, a USB to SD and TFT card reader, an ADXL345 accelerometer, and an adapter kit to install a Raspberry Pi CM4 if we ever want to use the Pad 7 as a mini computer or just wanted a little more computing power. There's also a couple of stickers along with the quintessential rubber ducky in the box. If we take a closer look at the Pad 7, on the top left of the screen there's a light sensor for automatic brightness adjustment and a couple of status indicator lights on the right. On the top of the unit is a power button. To the right is a USB Type-A port, a 32GB micro SD card with the operating system pre-installed onto it, inserted into the slot, and a USB Type-C port, used mainly for an optional way of powering the unit. On the back we have the CB1 with a nice big red heatsink on top of it to keep it cool, and this is what you would have to remove if you wanted to install the Raspberry Pi CM4. On top we have the 12-volt power supply input, two USB Type-A ports, an Ethernet port, in case you wanted to hook up your Pad 7 to wired Ethernet, a CAN bus interface, and an SPI socket for the accelerometer. There's a stand leg that can be easily removed for different mounting options, and there are two speakers that provide sound when you press the volume buttons. On the left we have the volume buttons that control the level of sound that comes out of the speakers, and an audio port. Ooh. Inside the smaller accessory box we have the 12-volt power supply, which has a modular plug interface on it like the Creality Sonic Pad 1 does. Moving on to the bigger box, we find our rubber ducky, the adapters for all of the various plugs throughout the world, the included accelerometer inside of a static-free baggie, the ribbon cable with SPI connector on one end, a USB to SD and micro SD card adapter, some blue ooey gooey to stick a Raspberry Pi CM4 places it's never been, an included barrel plug in case you wish to run the Pad 7 off of your own power supply, and the mounting kit for the Raspberry Pi CM4. So being that this is based on the CB1, I'm going to anticipate that setting it up is going to be fairly simple. I haven't powered this up yet. I'm just about to do that as we speak. So here is the power adapter, and then here is the plug that I have to use. Just take these two and kind of slide them together, and there it is. Now it's ready to go. I will plug the adapter in, and then I will plug it into the back of the unit, taking into account not kicking my tripod. I've got it propped up on this box here just to elevate it but not tilt it forward because it does reflect quite a bit. I have the protective plastic still on it, but it doesn't seem to matter if I leave it on or take it off. It's quite shiny. So let's pull this off and just take a look at it. Well, I paid for it now. All right, so let's power it on. Press the power button on the top here. And being that it came preloaded with the 32 gig chip, I'm going to assume, that the operating system's already been installed. So much like the CB1, this comes up with the Bigtreetech logo and the little spinny wheel there. And there we go. It's already hooked up with Clipper installed on it. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to go to Menu, Network, and see what it can find as far as Wi-Fi is concerned. Found my Wi-Fi, so I will log into that really quick. And that was very painless. It logged in no problem. So now I'm ready to basically SSH into it, get the configuration set up, and I have to flash a new firmware for the Neptune 2 because I'm going to be using a USB port, and I've been running mine on UART. So let me get all of that done, and we will pick back up here in a couple of minutes. Okay, so I can immediately log into the Pad7 just by simply putting in http://btt-pad7, which is the host name of the unit by default. I'll see if I can SSH into the device. btt-pad7-l, and I'm going to assume that the username is BQ. And we'll try the default password of BQ. Hey, look at that. So this is just like a CB1 because it is a CB1 that's just attached to a screen. So I have all the functionality that I need here to not only access the unit via SSH, but I can also CD into, I would assume Clipper directory, but let's just do an LS. So you can see right here I have the Clipper directory, so I can CD into Clipper. And then from there I should be able to run make menu config. So unlike the Sonic Pad, this is still a full version of Clipper. So this isn't limited to what Creality gives you as far as what they want you to have. So I should be able to go in, enable extra low level configuration, come down to my controller architecture, choose STM32. And I'm going to compile a binary for the STM32F407, which is for the Neptune 2 that I'm going to be installing this on. Being that this is basically stock Clipper install, I should have the prepackaged Clipper config file simply by going into WinSCP, and I will start a new session. Say btt-pad7, username of BQ, password of BQ. And that's it, we're in. So now from here, if I go to the Clipper directory and I go to config, if I make this bigger, I should be able to scroll down and find printer Elegoo Neptune 2 right there. So you can see right here, it already has the Elegoo Neptune 2 configuration. If I double click on that and open it up, it tells me exactly what my make menu config needs to look like. For the 407, extra low level configuration with a 32K bootloader, and then the USART 3, PB11, PB10 for the USB communication. So I'll go back to my SSH session here, and I'll make sure that I have PB11, PB10, 32K bootloader. Usually the clock reference doesn't change. I'll come down to communication interface, PB11, PB10. Sometimes you do have to change the baud rate if you have random shutdowns. Change that to 115200, and then you have to add a baud line into your printer.cfg. But in this case, we'll leave it at the default 25,000. I will do quit, and it'll ask me if I want to save. Say yes, and then from there, type the word make. And now it creates the binary file. While that's compiling, I'll just go back to my WinSCP, go up a level, go to the out folder, and then once the compiling is done, it will create the necessary bin file here, and then I can put it onto my SD card, and I can flash my Neptune 2. Okay, so I will refresh, and you'll see right here I've got the clipper.bin file. I'll click on that, I'll go rename, and I want to rename that elegoo.bin for the Neptune 2. If this were a Neptune 3 or the Pro models or the Pro base models, it would be capital letters ZMP _ Robin _ Nano. But in this case, the older boards use elegoo.bin. I have my SD card inserted already, which is under the D drive. So I'll just take this, I'll drag it over. And now this cursor file will not get in the way. This is a binary file for my Neptune 3. And what happens is the boards load the firmware files, and then they automatically rename the binary files to .cur. And it doesn't change the actual file itself. It just changes the extension so that it doesn't flash over and over and over again. So if you wanted to change this back to a binary, all you have to do is just change it to .bin, and this would reflash back onto an existing machine. But in this case, I'm just going to leave these the way they are. Before I go back to the machine, I'll close out the SSH session. I'll close out WinSCP. So now from here, what I have to do is I have to load my printer.cfg file into the printer.cfg that is here under the machine link here. This printer.cfg, just basically has 2 include lines and no other information, which this is actually good because if you were to flash the binary file and you had the unit attached to your machine, a sonic pad would go into thermal runaway in some cases because the pins are already established, and sometimes it picks up the wrong pins and things start getting haywire. In this case here, there's a mainsail.cfg, which probably just links to a bunch of start and pause macros, and this include generic Bigtreetech blah 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 CFG. I don't really even need that line. So it's good that they give you just a generic file and they don't give you something that's got a config on it and start your whole house on fire. But I did notice that everything here as far as the install is marked as invalid. So I'm going to try and do an update check and see if that works. And while I'm doing that, I'm going to SSH back into it. And I want to see if the Kaya script's already installed. Okay, so the Kaya script doesn't seem to be installed. So while I'm here, I'll do that. And much like my other videos, I just do a Google search for Kaya, go to the GitHub page, come down and get to about here. Make sure that we have Git installed. Just copy this line here. Go back to terminal, Control V will paste, enter. So it's already on the latest version. So now from here we can do CD and clone. While it's doing that, we can copy this, paste, enter, and now we've got Kaya installed. So coming back here, we can see that it finally crossed its T's, dotted its I's. It is prompting me for some updates. It looks like there's a whole bunch of updates. So I'm going to do an update all component and see how much it gets messed up. So I'll come back when this is all done. Okay, so it's done updating, and it looks like they're using a special version of Clipper Screen. I did try to update it through the Kaya script, and it doesn't let me do it. So there must be something in there with the Clipper Screen being proprietary to this install, but everything else seemed to go through okay, and I still have access to it, so I'm assuming that it didn't hammer up too bad just yet. As far as my configuration is concerned, because I don't have my MKS Pi powered up at the moment, I'm just going to go to my GitHub page. And the printer.cfg that I have on my GitHub page is actually probably one of the most recent updates for my machine. There probably will be a couple things I'll have to remove, like the temperature sensor for the MKS Pi, or I just have to rename it for the Pad7. It'll still take it, but it's just going to look a little wompy. So I'll just copy this, go back to mainsail, printer CFG. I'll just do a Control A, a Control V. Save and restart. I don't have the machine hooked up yet. I still have to flash the binary. I'm going to go back to the camera and I'm going to flash the binary. Everything should it should come up. I do have to double check my serial connection. It might give me a headache because of the ADXL stuff here. So I'm just going to comment that out for the time being. So I'll come down to my MCU section, and for now I'll just do the catch-all. I'll just do dev/tty USB 0. And hopefully that works, but if it doesn't work, then we just have to do an ls USB and see if it's attached and do the by ID and see if that works. So I'm going to go back to the overhead and we'll see if this actually works. All right, so we're back. And I've got the firmware on this SD card here. I'm going to insert it into the Neptune 2. I'll turn it on. I'll give that a minute just to do its thing. I still haven't plugged in the USB port yet, but while that's flashing, I should be able to do that. So I shouldn't have to reboot the printer. I'll just do a firmware restart. And there it is. It comes right up. So you can see that I still have it labeled as MKS Pi as far as the temperature sensor is concerned, but everything should be on the up and up. Let's tilt the camera up this way a little bit. And here we go. I'm going to go to homing, home all. And there it is. Okay, so go through the menus. It does make a clicking noise, but there is a volume control. I'll turn the volume down and see if that makes a difference. That's better. Probably go lower than that even. I don't know if you can hold it and it'll go down, but I'll just keep hitting it. Okay, so you can mute it. If I go to configuration, settings, I'll use the standard time. Probably have to change the time zone. The time zones more than likely are going to be in the configuration file, just like the CB1. I like the colorized or the material dark themes. Everything is still there from the original configuration. I can almost guarantee that everything is going to work perfectly because it's using my config and it's using a CB1, and I've had really great success with the CB1. I'm very happy with the CB1 as a whole. I'm curious if this will let me flip the orientation. I'm going to have to play around with the config files in this just to see what's what with that. But yeah, this went very painlessly. This was probably the easiest Klipper install that I've done so far, simply because the operating system is already installed on here. I just had to go in and copy my config file to the existing printer.cfg inside of the Pad7, flash the binary for the USB port, and everything came up. So let's do a final tally on everything, and we will finish up this video at the computer. There are a lot of things that you can change in the system.cfg. So if you SSH into the Pad7 and you do a cd/boot and then command a sudo nano, just type in sy and hit tab, and you'll get the system.cfg. Once you have that open, you have a bunch of configuration options that you can change inside of here. I changed the time zone on mine to America/New York. You can change the host name from Bigtreetech Pad7 to whatever you want it to show up as on your network. This KS angle, if you put in left or right, it will rotate the screen 90 degrees. And let me tell you, portrait Klipper just hits different. If you want to set it back to normal, you can type in normal. If you want to flip it 180 degrees, you just type in inverted inside of the double quotes and restart the system, and everything will flip upside down. You can put in your Wi-Fi information here, but if you noticed earlier, I was able to just get into my Wi-Fi through Klipper screen, and that configuration is saved, and every time I've rebooted the unit, it just comes up, so I don't even have to put that inside of here. Further down the line, there is an auto brightness setting that you can turn on, or you can toggle it off. I haven't seen where the auto brightness actually does that much as of yet, but I've not tried it in a dark room. I've tried it in a bright room, and I've tried it in a room with the circus lighting, but it doesn't seem to have any effect on it as of yet. I want to try it in a completely dark room and see if the auto brightness will actually tone it down a little bit or what it'll do. You can toggle the sound effects off right here with this touch sound, or you just turn the volume down with the volume buttons. There is a haptic feedback vibration that you can turn on, but in order to do that, you have to follow some steps on the Bigtreetech GitHub page. I have not tried to do that yet, but it is an option if you wanted to turn it on. I'm not sure if it's completely set up or if you have to actually follow the instructions to get it to work. And as I mentioned earlier, there is CAN functionality, so if you wanted to use a CAN module, just make sure that you follow the instructions on this GitHub page, and you can get it set up to work with a CAN interface. Here's the information for setting up the ADXL 345. While I'm here, I still have the unit on, so let me add these to that printer.cfg. So now I will do a save and restart, and hopefully it just comes right up. Oh, I don't have the printer on. So if you double check and make sure that your printer is turned on, you can see right here the MCU labeled CB1 fires right up, and that's the MCU for the ADXL. So it does seem like everything is working okay. I haven't run the resonance testing yet, but that's only because I have a pre-existing configuration and everything should be set up inside of that. But yeah, all in all, I'm pretty happy with the way that this installation went, and that it pretty much was a plug-and-play, painless experience. I'll be using the Pad7 to do some test prints in a later video, so stay tuned for that. And for now, I guess we can just wrap this one up. So now I want to do a little bit of a comparison between the Bigtreetech Pad7 and the Creality Sonic Pad, considering I've done clipper setups on both of these units. As far as the initial steps to set up and install are concerned, I would say that the Pad7 wins this one. If you're familiar with installing clipper on any other standard device, you'll feel right at home with the Pad7. The Creality Sonic Pad's initial setup is clunky in comparison with its proprietary setup interface, additional steps that need to be taken, its non-standard make menu config that is lacking necessary compiling options for non-Creality boards, and so on. Since the Pad7 uses a standard clipper installation, updates are readily available and there's no waiting around for manufacturer-specific firmware to be released. Both units do include an ADXL 345, but I feel the Creality Sonic Pad wins this one from an aesthetic standpoint. Their ADXL is nicely packaged in a plastic enclosure, and the included cable has a long reach. In comparison, the Bigtreetech Pad7 ADXL is a little less refined, with its bare PCB design and short cable. Both will do the job, I just think the Creality one was executed slightly better. Pad7 does not include a USB cable, so you'll have to include your own, whereas the Sonic Pad does include a nice braided cable, but I've heard complaints about its long-term reliability. Both units have the ability to run multiple printers, but the Sonic Pad has 4 USB ports allowing for up to 4 machines to be run at a time, where the Pad7 only includes 3. There's a 4th USB Type-C connection, but according to the designers, it's only available for powering the unit and doing updates. As seen with other devices, a USB hub should be able to be used with the Pad7, but I feel that the 1 GB of memory is a little bit of a shortcoming when it comes to running that many machines at once when compared to the Sonic Pad's 2 GB of RAM. Speaking of memory, the Pad7 includes a 32 GB SD card for the operating system and program storage, where the Sonic Pad only has 8 GB of total memory. I do believe that eMMC memory is a little more robust than a micro SD card, but the nice thing about the Pad7 is that if the memory ever does become corrupt, a new SD card is only a few bucks. And lastly, the price of the Pad7 is currently sitting at $129, where the Sonic Pad is $159. I have seen it on sale for less than that, but that's very rare. Personally, I think that the Bigtreetech Pad7 is a perfect clipper package for those just starting out that want to run clipper but don't have enough knowledge to get over some of the humps that the Sonic Pad would have you face. I've done remote support for a handful of users lately, and I don't think the Pad7 will make me work as hard for a new user. So my takeaways on the Bigtreetech Pad7 are that it is CB1 based, which is tried and true technology. The CB1 has been around for a while. It's used with the Pi4B and Manta boards that Bigtreetech also offers. It is also compatible with the Octopus board when coupled with the Pi4B adapter. And as you can see, it's compatible with other motherboards from other printer manufacturers. The Pad7 can be upgraded to a Pi CM4, and it includes the hardware to do so. So if you ever wanted to get more horsepower out of the unit than a CB1 can provide, you can actually upgrade to a Raspberry Pi CM4. It's a direct plug-in. The installation is very easy. You flash a binary, you paste a CFG file, and you optionally run the updates, but you don't really have to. Once you have the working binary installed on your machine, you copy and paste the config, and if you're working from a working configuration, it just comes right up. The screen is very clear and responsive. It's right up there with the Amazon touchscreens that I have, if not a little bit better. It's on par with the Creality Sonic Pad, and it's also on par with the HDMI 5 Bigtreetech screen that I have as well. One downside to the Pad 7 is that being that it's CB1 based, I would think that they would provide additional GPIO because you have that much capability on the CB1 and the CM4, but there are no GPIO pins, therefore no UART pins on the back of the unit. I prefer to run UART connectivity on my motherboards as opposed to running a USB cable, so that is one point of contention that I do have. And lastly, the customization of the Pad 7 is right on par with the CB1 because it is running a CB1 in the background. So that'll about wrap it up for this video. If you enjoyed it, hit the like button. If you enjoy the content and haven't done so yet, make sure you subscribe to the channel and ring the bell for notifications and updates on future videos. And if you know someone that would enjoy this type of stuff, share with your friends because sharing is caring. If you're interested in the Bigtreetech Pad 7 or any other Bigtreetech product, check out my affiliate links in the description below. It puts a little bit of catnip into my kitty at no additional cost to you. If you're a part of the cesspool that is Facebook and want a nice breath of fresh air, make sure you join the group, Elegoo Neptune Series 3D Printers, Mods, Tweaks, and Improvements, where we have 24/7 live chats, community-based online support, and we just did our first giveaway thanks to BQ and Bigtreetech. Congratulations to our giveaway winners, Bradley, Tyson, Mark, Tony, and Eric. They will all be receiving a slew of Bigtreetech products as part of the giveaway. And once again, thank you to all of my catnip contributors, both past, present, and future. Thank you for watching, and we will see you again soon.